Hello and welcome to my video for cooking. Today we're going to tackle something that I haven't made in about a year. How to make your own Chinese white noodles, specifically Biang Biang Mian. Excuse me if I butchered that name. Now, anyways, this video took me a while to make because I was hesitant to make this dish. I'm not fully experienced enough to make my own versions of dishes, so this is actually not my recipe. I took inspiration from two different recipes. Mikey Chen from Strictly Dumpling made one version of this dish, and Chinese Cooking Demystified also made their version of this dish. They're both channels on YouTube that I would recommend that you check out, and we're going to be using some green onions to put as toppings later on, so let's get to it. We're going to start by making some homemade noodles. So add 200 grams of flour into a large mixing bowl. Right here I actually use 300 because I wanted more noodles and I needed to serve more people. So excuse me for a minute. Next you're going to want to add a little over half a teaspoon of salt into your mixing bowl. And then let those two buddies get to know each other using your hands. Don't hesitate. Then slowly pour in about 100 milliliters of water while you mix the flour and salt in one direction. Pick counterclockwise or clockwise. I had to add a little bit more water because I had more flour. Once your craggly mess just barely becomes a ball from about 1 to 2 minutes of mixing, you're going to want to cover it and let it rest for 30 minutes. After that rest, you're going to want to take your dough ball and start kneading it for about 2 minutes. Here's a little montage of me just kneading it. Give me a second. Once you're done with that process, you're going to want to pinch the most rough side of your dough and slide it along a table counter to smoothen it out. Friction's going to be your best friend here, so here's me getting a nice rough cutting board to work with, and I'm going to be pinching that dough again, as so, and I'll be sliding it in different directions. Here's one side, and I'm going to be doing it in another side. Yes, that side too. Once your log is smooth, you're going to want to cut it into 4 pieces. I had to make 5 because I was working with a little more dough. Then pinch out the cut sides of your dough pieces, which means both sides for the middle pieces, and roll out each one into logs. Roll them out, yeah. Nice. Play-doh. Okay. And then after that, oil out a container and coat each dough log with oil. This will allow the dough to keep its moisture and make it elastic for noodle stretching later. Just put the ball in, man. You can do it. There you go. Yeah, just let all of those coat really well. You're gonna want to be very liberal with this. Make sure each surface is coated perfectly. And after you're done with that, you're gonna want to let those bananas rest for 2 hours after covering it. Yes, it's a very lengthy process, but just trust me, it's good. While those rest, why don't we make some toppings? I have this vegetable here called tongho that I want to blanch in water. Usually it's used in hot pot, but I really like the vegetable. It's in my fridge, so why not? Here's me cutting the stems, and you don't need to do this if you like them whole. Honestly, you can add whatever blanched vegetable you want. Next, I'm gonna go and pound and finally mince a good amount of garlic. I really like garlic in this dish, so we're going to be getting a lot of that, and we're also going to be adding some green onions. Chop off those roots and just cut those. We're going to be using all parts of them, so you can see I'm using the green and the white part. Make sure you use all of them. We're going to be putting those aside and we'll be adding those later. Also going to add an inch or so of ginger to the mix. Here's me trying to chop it. Nice. Now, I wanted to add a little bit of eggs, so here's 1 and 2. Just wait for it. I've been trying to practice this thing all week. Come on, you got this? Nice. You guys impressed? Okay, great. Well, we're gonna be seasoning that stuff up with salt and some freshly ground pepper, and you're gonna want to scramble that. We're gonna be needing that for later as well. Next, we're gonna cut a whole large tomato into wedges. I heard that you can retain the juice by cutting along the groove, so here's me struggling to do that with a dull knife. Please don't follow me and use a sharp one. Come on, the skin is a little difficult to penetrate. Excuse me. Well, we have our wedges here. We'll set those aside. And look at the time. It's time to make some noodles. I have a rolling pin here that I'm going to use, and here are noodle dough balls. Or locks. Well, anyways, we're going to take 1, and we're going to use a rolling pin, and just roll it up just a little bit. Make it a little more flat. You could do both width and lengthwise. And we're going to be making a little indentation with the chopstick to make more noodles. And we're gonna see why this is called Biang Biang Noodles. I'm just gonna be banging this on the counter until it gets flat enough and long enough. And then using the indentation that we had earlier, we're gonna separate the noodle into 2 different noodles. I'm struggling to do that a little bit because my dough actually ended up becoming a little too dense with flour. If you were making multiple batches, I'd recommend that you just go with 200 grams of flour and then just repeat if you want to make more. I made this mistake, so these noodles are going to come out like a little more doughy than you'd want them to be. Because my noodles turned out a little too thick, I'm just going to be doing a little extra processing on them by rolling them up on a rolling pin. We're going to be bringing those to boiling water. You're going to be doing this with all the logs, so here's me bianging the heck out of these noodles again. Nice. Just enjoy that little beat of noodles. Biang. Over and over. Okay. Great. These ones actually turned out a lot better than the other ones, but they're at a right consistency, so I decided to screw it. I'm just gonna cut these out with a knife. Usually they should be soft enough to where you don't need to do this, but I'm not the best at doing this dish well, so here's me just having pretty flat noodles. This turned out to be like probably the best ones that I've had. Yes, we're gonna be putting those into boiling water for about a minute or until the noodles start to rise to the surface. You can start to agitate them a little bit with a spoon or whatever mixing thing that you want, but yeah, you can see that they're on the surface and now they're ready to serve. So we're just gonna put those aside. See those nice craggly noodles over there? With the noodles done, we're gonna be blanching our vegetables in the same water. You're gonna want to do this for about 30 seconds. You can see the tong ho over there, and use whatever vegetable you want. Next, we're gonna be making some scrambled eggs. So on a high heat pan, add your eggs to pan and let them set. Make sure that you break it apart a little bit with your spatula or something, because this will be incorporated in a sauce with the tomatoes. In the same pan, we're going to add a little bit of our aromatics, some of our green onions, garlic, and ginger. You're going to want to let that stir for like a few seconds. And then add the tomato wedges. Sprinkle in some salt to help with letting go of its moisture, and let that stuff cook for about 5 to 6 minutes so that you're left with a bunch of juices in the pan. I'd also recommend breaking tomatoes apart during this process. I also forgot to mention that I added a 1/3 cup of water to my pan before setting the timer. And excuse me for not having a tripod to help out with the recording. Anyways, after messing with that shaky camera, we're gonna be adding that those eggs, yeah, and break that stuff apart so that it's a pretty cohesive sauce. Once you're done with that, we're gonna want to finish with a little touch of sesame oil. Now let's begin the assembly. Pour the rest of your green onions and garlic on top, as well as some chili flakes of your choosing. I chose Szechuan chili flakes. And we're also going to make a sauce. So mix 2 to 4 tablespoons of light soy sauce with 1 tablespoon of Chinese black vinegar. Adjust the amounts to your taste, and you can find these in your local Asian grocer. Now we're going to add that dark stuff around our bowl of noodles, as well as add our blanched vegetables on the side. Just make it a little pretty. Little tap, and our tomato and eggs topping. You're gonna want to add, you can add more if you want. Now we're gonna do my favorite part. Heat up some vegetable oil in your pan at high heat and pour that stuff on top of your chili, garlic, and onion mixture. Just listen to that sizzle. And also breathe in that tantalizing aroma. Mix everything around to get the noodles nice and saucy, and let's dig in. I gotta say that the flavor profile of this dish hits the right notes. Salty, spicy, a little sour, and that garlic is always a nice addition. Unfortunately for the noodles themselves, I added too much flour and water in my batch. What could have been pretty thin, flexible, and wide noodles became too thick with dough and quite brittle in texture. Just follow the instructions on my inspirations for this dish. Remember Strictly Dumpling and Chinese Cooking Demystified on YouTube. And it looks like I gotta keep on practicing this art before my friends mock me for not bianging the dough enough in the apartment this fall.